Welcome into the United East Hoops podcast. I am your host, Pierce Kewen, and I am recording this on Labor Day Monday. So, enjoy your grill outs, enjoy hanging out with family and friends because it's about to get real. You're about to go back to work, about to go back to living your normal lives. But Labor Day weekend also means the start of college football season. And yes, I know this is a United East men's basketball podcast, but I personally love college football. I know a lot of people out there do. And as I was, doing my due diligence and reading my preview magazines in the summer, probably mid-July, I was thinking about it, Sunday afternoon, and I was just like, man, the SEC is very similar to United East, SEC football that being. And as I, was comparing teams and like seeing which one was which, I just thought like, man, it's identical. Like every team has their own comparison in each conference. So I'm gonna, in honor of college football starting, that's how I'm gonna do my first own podcast. Yes, it's not an interview. We will have more of those in the future, but anyways, I'm just gonna start and we'll go in order alphabetical United East teams. So, Abington will be first and instead of, Alabama. So we're gonna start with Abington and ended up with well, let's just have you find out here. So here we go. Penn State Abington will get the comparison of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Well, before I go any further, both conferences have the same number now, with Clark Summit, rest in peace, not being existent anymore. So, and Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, so they all worked out numbers wise, and I think it's a really good comparison. You'll have to judge that for yourselves. But here we go. Penn State Abington is Arkansas. They've had one good year in the past decade or so. Arkansas had that year with KJ Jefferson at quarterback a couple years ago, and Abington was, they had a good run. They were about like 18-9, a pretty good season for them. A couple years, 22-23 season actually. Other than that year though, they have, been flirting with 500 seasons. Not the place you want to be for your program, in the long term. You want to make some stabs at, championship runs, and 500 is just not going to cut it. But they do have very similar win percentages, which is something I found out over the last 3 seasons. Abington is 49% win percentage, and Arkansas was 53. So I feel like they kind of fit each other there. Obviously, they both start with A. That didn't have anything to do with it. But, I thought it was a good comparison. Just overall, I feel like Arkansas is the Abington of the United East, like of the SEC, I mean, and vice versa too. So there's Abington for you. So we're gonna move right along, and yes, the Penn State schools are first, but I did not mean it to be that way. But you'll have to deal with it. So here we go. Number 2, Penn State Berks. It gets the draw of Kentucky. We had Jaden Mass on the show, a really great guy. Penn State Berks. They are striving to be consistently good and be taken serious in postseason talk. Let's talk about that one for a second. Penn State Berks is rebuilding. Kentucky they're not as, comparatively, they're not as much of a rebuilding stage as Penn State Berks is. However, you do have, Kentucky's like 6-6, 8-4, every now and then 9-3, 10-2. But they're never, beating Georgia or making the SEC championship game. That's just not happening for them. They win a couple good bowl games, but that's not where you want to be. You want to build a championship program. And Berks is, that's where they're trying to get. They're trying to make the playoffs. They did that last year. They're trying to win a playoff game. So next year they'll try to win 2 playoff games, make a run at the title. So they're looking for big things there in Berks. But overall, nothing major stands out about their program besides nice branding and good facilities. My sources tell me that. I've never been there. My sources tell me they have good facilities, good gym, everything like that. And obviously, if you watch college football, Kentucky. They have good uniforms. They got the stuff there in Lexington. And again, I kind of mentioned this earlier. Every so often they'll have a standout team. Kentucky had a team made the Citrus Bowl, beat Penn State. Berks, it might be this year. Let's just go with that. All right, moving along. Penn State Brandywine. Unfortunately, you guys get Mississippi State. You probably weren't, hoping to get Mississippi State, but it's kind of what the cards dealt there. below average program looking for a breakthrough season. Can't secure it yet, and it doesn't seem likely in the next few years with new teams, tougher competition. But hey, you never know. There's always a chance, you know. Never say never is what they say, but I'm gonna say never. They're probably not gonna win it all this year. Um, yeah, they do. You know, Mississippi State and Brandywine. I'm kind of being harsh on Brandywine here, but they do have very similar win percentages over the last 3 years. 50% for Brandywine, 55% Mississippi State. It doesn't help that Brandywine's coach, went over to Abington. Yeah, that's not gonna help make a better case for you guys. But the head coach for Mississippi State is in his first season. Head coach for Brandywine's in his second season. I thought that was kind of interesting. How I didn't know that when I first made the comparison, but here we are. All right, moving along. Finally, get to a good powerhouse kind of team. Bryn Athyn gets the comparison of Ole Miss. Now, if you know college football, Ole Miss this is their year, and I feel like many people at Bryn Athyn feel the same way about that. And this was actually the first comparison I made. The main reason being because they both, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, they run it through the portal, and I can see how Sean Westerland, he goes through the portal too. That's their primary source of getting recruits. So I think I really just like that comparison there. That's definitely my favorite one. They can both taste the mountaintop, as I jotted down here earlier when I was making my pre-show notes. Again, this year's the best chance in recent seasons by far. Bryn Athyn, prior to last season, had not been a stellar program. Ole Miss was a little bit better before that, but they still this is their year. Everybody around around Oxford and around where Bryn Athyn is, they feel like this is their year to bring it home. So I'm excited to see that. They got both of them got a good squad this year. As I said, recruiting through the portal, main thing. I put this one down recently, and this is from what I can tell. I feel like I know at Ole Miss, but at Bryn Athyn too, they carry a certain kind of confidence about them. Let's say it's not cocky. It's not cocky at all. It's a very I like it's confident. They have a certain swagger about themselves that some people might take the wrong way, but I just think it's really competitive spirit. I think it is really cool to see, and I know the guys in the program like it like that. So both coaches ended up taking over in 2020, and both teams last year had multiple stars. Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, Quinshon Judkins, Ulysses Bennett, and over at Bryn Athyn they have 4 guys make all conference teams with Will Little on first team, Jalen Parker and Jalen Jackson on second team, and Jakir Hampton on the third team. So they had studs last year. Couldn't get it done in the conference tournament, but that's why this is their year. So we'll go to the next one here. It's kind of lengthier than the Penn State schools, but I had a lot of comparisons, a lot to say about that one. Moving on, it is Cairn and LSU. If you know, LSU lost, recently to USC in a bad way, not doing good in season openers, but that really does not apply to Cairn as much, I don't think. So, but a lot of it does. Besides that fact, a lot of it does. Knows their way around recruiting through high school in the portal, but mainly through the portal. As of late, Cairn has gotten a ton, and I mean a ton of transfers. They've gotten all conference guards from the D2 level. They've got a guy from Hampton-Sydney. Just made a run at the national championship a couple years ago. They've always been that good, and he's transferring to Cairn. And they were already pretty good last year. They had talent last year, I'll say that. They weren't spectacular, about 500, but with the talent they had, they should have been better. Same goes for LSU. But the reason what held them back from, being as great as they could have been with all the star talent that they had was their defense. Cairn's defense was not good. It was awful last year. That's why they're bringing in these transfers. That's why, both teams were bringing in transfers. Both teams were at the bottom of their conference defensively. Cairn had all this talent offensively. They had Ator, they had Darian, both all-conference first team, which is insane to have on a team that didn't even win a playoff game and lost. It was the first round too. It's not like they got a bye and got upset. They lost in the first round. But LSU, on the other hand, they had a very similar season. They had star talent. They had Jaden Daniels, 3rd overall pick in the draft, and they had Malik Neighbors, 8th overall pick in the draft. Both absolute studs on offense. Jaden Daniels had a beyond Heisman caliber season, but Caleb Williams did too, so that's why he lost that. But his season last year was insane. So was Ator. So was Darian. And yet they couldn't get it done because of their defense. Again, defense wins championships, and that's why Karen didn't win a championship last year. Both head coaches going into a legacy year, Brian Kelly and Coach O'Connell down at Karen, they need to prove they are elite, not just really good or great. They've each LSU had that 1 year, 2019, where they ran through college football, won the national championship. Karen had a year, 2019-20, around that time, where they won the CSAC, which is now obviously United East. But they won that conference, and that was a really good team. But neither program has won since. They've been good, but they haven't. They've been good, really good. They have not been great or elite, which is, that's the goal. You always got to be elite. They do have very similar win percentages, which I was not surprised by. Karen 60%, LSU 67%, and both teams were mildly to heavily inconsistent. Like Karen lost a couple games they shouldn't have, and LSU just LSU was inconsistent. All right, next one. Gallaudet, you draw Vanderbilt, and that might seem bad, but Vanderbilt is not that bad. They just got a big win Saturday against Virginia Tech. It's not that bad. All right, could have been worse. You could have gotten. Well, I won't go there. Okay, Gallaudet, do both and Vanderbilt play in a large district. Gallaudet is in the DMV area, and Vanderbilt is in Nashville. Shouldn't be too hard to recruit, right? Well, you would think that. They can't capitalize on that, despite being in such a large area. And it's not that they're trying. Obviously, they're trying to recruit, but they have these bigger teams, better teams, coming in and poaching their players, like a Tennessee's in the same state. You got Notre Dame, Maryland in the same conference as Gallaudet. And you got teams like Bama and Georgia. They're all recruiting Tennessee too, Kentucky. And the same thing goes for Gallaudet. You got all these teams in that region. There are a lot of schools, D2, D3, in that region, but they just can't get it done recruiting wise. And that's the main sources where you get your guys from. You gotta recruit from where you're from. Both teams find a way to upset a better team or program every so often. By that, it's 1 to 2 for basketball. It's 2 to 3 times a year. For football, once, maybe twice a year, if you're lucky. But just the way Vanderbilt has been past couple years, it hasn't been twice or once maybe. But Gallaudet had a couple. They played a couple tough games. Lost close ones. They also were pretty close to some good teams here, and ended up winning a couple games in the conference against some pretty good teams. So overall, they have work to do, but it's getting better. Both teams, I feel like, are trending upwards, we'll say. Next one. Keystone College gets the Oklahoma Sooners. They're both well-known and well-respected programs. Like, you never go into one of these games thinking like, oh yeah, we're just gonna breeze through them. Keystone's always been there. Maybe they haven't been great, but they've been good enough to respect them and not be like, oh yeah, we're walking over them. Oklahoma's the same way. They had one down year a couple years ago, but other than that, they've been absolutely stellar. They have talent at the quarterback position seemingly every year. A lot of that was thanks to Lincoln Riley, who's not there, but they still have studs there. Big changes this year. For Oklahoma, it's Brent Venables got a big contract, and it's a pretty important year for him. And they're in the SEC, and they're starting Jackson Arnold, who's a star quarterback for them. Keystone, obviously, one of the toughest losses that any program in this conference has ever seen is losing Jack Anderson. Dropped like 40 in the playoff game against Karen. He's a star. There's no other way to put that. He ended up transferring to Marquette. Like, come on. We're playing the United East, and he's going to Big East. That's not right. But they still couldn't get it done. They had a pretty good supporting staff. It just, didn't end up working for them. Pretty inconsistent against some teams, but lost in the second round of their division's playoffs. So it's could have done more. That's all I can say. So another comparison, very tough place to play. From what I've heard, what Mo told me on his interview, you can go check that out, actually. It's still there. It's a very tough place to play. I know that for sure. And Oklahoma is a tough place to play. You don't want to go to Norman, and you don't want to go to Keystone to play. You just tough environment, loud crowd. They bring it every game. You do not want to get there. They also recently hired a new head coach. Keystone's coach previously left, and last year was the first season for Andrew Kettle. Now this will be his second season, looking to do big things here. And Brent Venables, as I said, big contract year. Recently got there after Lincoln Riley left. So both, are replacing coaches that willingly left and didn't get fired. Never easy to do. Next one here, we have Lancaster Bible College. They get Texas. Now you might be like, well, I don't know about that one. I know a couple friends of mine, I made the comparison. They were like, I don't know about that one. I don't get where you're going with that. But, as I did some research, I figured out, yes, that was the right choice. So both the storied program recently made a surge to the top of the conference. LBC had that historic, incredible run that was just amazing to witness back in 2022. They made the Sweet 16, not the conference tournament, the Sweet 16 of the national tournament, which is pretty good. We'll say that from a small conference, especially. And Texas last year lost in the college football playoff semis, came down in the last play, ran into a really good Washington team. So that's very similar right there. Both are looking for a title or the season's incomplete or unmaximized use of talent. And, you never want to be at that place where you don't maximize your full potential. I've been there. I know most, if not everyone, has been there, whether it's at work or it's on the court or doing a podcast. Like, everybody's been there. High expectations for fan bases. That's for sure. Texas is always high, no matter what's going on down there. And LBC, I feel like, around the area, they're just big things expected from them, and teams around the conference they have expectations there, but nothing like what the fan base has down there. Similar win percentages again. This is all, every time I do this, it's over the last 3 seasons, to get an actual grasp on it. LBC 70%, Texas 68%. Nearly identical. I don't know if you can get closer, probably can, but it's only a 1 game difference. Coaches have been there for about 5 years. Coach Mack at LBC has been there 6 years. Sarkisian down at Texas has been there 4 years. Each had one historic run, as I mentioned, and they're looking to get another one. Like, that, it's as simple as that. They're just looking to make another run. LBC to win the conference, Texas to win the conference, win the playoff game, and make the national championship game, which they failed to do last season. Next one, Notre Dame of Maryland and South Carolina. I know Notre Dame, expectations can't be too high. It's only like the second year they've actually had a team. Used to be an all-girls school, and now look where they are. Second year, already building expectations for their guys' team. Anyways, that's just what us talking heads do. Programs building and looking for a breakthrough year, but you might have to wait. Probably will have to wait a couple years. Not a good record last year. Beat an inconsistent Karen and only had like 2 other wins besides that. Not great, but obviously first year of actually having guys at your college, so it could have been worse. Let's go with that. Again, like same thing with Gallaudet and Vanderbilt. They're in a good area to recruit. Baltimore, Maryland, that is. And South Carolina, obviously, they can recruit South Carolina. Football is big down south. And they also have, Georgia, Florida area, but that's being taken over by the Georgias and Bamas and Floridas of the world. Not Florida. We'll go with Miami. That one might be better. Bigger and better programs end up taking most of their talent from that region, like I just said. They definitely do not benefit from cross-conference realignment. I know South Carolina doesn't. They don't get as much of an easy schedule, even though it never was. It's much harder. And Notre Dame, Maryland, you're going to have to play Harrisburg. You're going to have to play LBC. You're going to have to play other good teams, St. Mary's. Like, it's not going to be easier. It's just not going to get easier. But there's always optimism. Next one, Penn College. So they get Tennessee. Not a bad one. We'll go with that. Historic university and program, of course. Both teams pretty historic, I would say. In my eyes, you might differ on that one. Located in a good college town, Williamsport for Penn College and Knoxville for Tennessee. have been powered by the offense. That's an understatement. Penn College, third in offense in the conference last year. Tennessee was seventh, in the conference last year. Sleeper pick. I'm not gonna lie. Penn College, I wouldn't have them win it all. There's too much talent at the top of the conference. But they could make a run, maybe upset a team. They could. They could do that for sure. And Tennessee, they're looking to win the conference. But they are a sleeper pick. They are, sixth in the odds to go win the conference. But they have a good team there. Again, offensively oriented, for sure. Next one, Penn State, Harrisburg, and Georgia. I feel like this one was kind of obvious. This was one of my first comparisons, after the Branson one. Powerhouse program. You think SEC, you think Georgia, you think United East, you think Harrisburg. You're gonna have to go through this team to win the conference. That's just how it is. It's always, not always how it's been, but recently that's really how it's been. We're taking the next step recently and show no sign of slowing down. That is 100% facts right there. So Georgia was really, really good. Had a couple stabs at Bama, couldn't really get it done until they won back-to-back titles, obviously. Penn State Harrisburg was really good, and then now they're above elite. They're a really, really good program over there, and it's going to be tough to beat them come playoff time. As you see, St. Elizabeth played them in the championship, lost by 20. That's a lot to deal with. Penn State Harrisburg's not. They have a couple studs, but they're really good, really well-rounded too. Kind of like Georgia. Teams hate playing them. That is a fact, obviously. Nobody wants to play Georgia. No one wants to play Harrisburg. Better than elite defense. Again, the defense is insane. The team is really good. Both first in the conference last year, Penn State, Harrisburg, and Georgia. It doesn't obviously get better than that. Really good or great offense too. Penn State, Harrisburg fifth. Georgia second. They're good. They're good. New faces. They will have to play. Georgia will have to play Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC West more, and so will Penn State, Harrisburg. They'll have to play Canada. They'll have to play Branson. They'll have to play Wilson. They'll have to play teams like that. Tougher schedule will come with that. That's included. Both coaches in a long, successful tenure. Don Friday over at Penn State, Harrisburg. Props to him for sure in his 11th season, or going into his 11th season, and Kirby Smart in his 9th season with the Dogs. Next one, Rosemont and Texas A&M. A loud venue, that's for sure. We saw that Saturday night. If you watched that, A&M Notre Dame, great game. But Rosemont, it provides one of, if the not toughest place to play in the conference. It's not the biggest gym. Obviously, if you've been there, you've seen a game there, watched a game there. The gym's small, the court's small. It's very difficult to win there. And A&M, obviously, they have one of the biggest stadiums in the conference, but it's still really tough to play there. And that was, the bottom line of that. You don't want to play there. Very tough to win there. No matter how good the team is. They're always going to be loud. They're always going to, have that home field or home court advantage. Trying to find the missing piece to put them into conference contention. Rosemont has not been in conference contention as of late, and A&M, despite preseason hype, has not been there either. This could be both of their years. More likely A&M. I'm not completely seeing it with Rosemont, but maybe not win the conference, but they could, make a run in the playoffs. This is one of my favorite ones, if not my complete favorite. St. Elizabeth in Missouri. Jumpstart program came onto the map last season in a huge way. Nobody saw it coming from. You should have been in the program. You might not have seen it coming. It was way out of the blue. Return key pieces from last year, and they're looking to win the conference. St. Elizabeth 1 game away. Missouri could have beaten Georgia in the regular season. That would have been tough. Then they would have had won the SEC championship. 2 games away from that. So not very far off with that. Star talent returning, expectations rise. Whenever that happens, how is the program going to handle the pressure? It comes from the coaching staff down. How is the program going to be able to, handle expectations and even exceed them? St. Elizabeth, they're only taking the championship. It's championship or bust there. Missouri, they only have these stars for a couple more years. Or one. They're probably going to go to the draft. It's win it all. Win it or they've hovered around 500 until last season. There's no other way to put that. Like, Missouri was 6-7 before this, and all of a sudden they go out, win 10, 11 games. St. Elizabeth, same way, had pretty average seasons, and then all of a sudden, boom, you see them in the conference championship game. Dynamic stars, like you had an NFL star talent, but he decided to forego his eligibility there and stayed at college, Luther Burden. And you have Tyrell Monroe, who is an absolute stud for St. Elizabeth. I like that comparison right there. This is crazy. Both of them finished in their conference the same place for offense and defense. St. Elizabeth 6th, Missouri 5th in defense. Missouri was 5th in defense. St. Elizabeth 6th in offense. I don't know. Pretty good comparison? I think so. Let's see. Next one. We got 3 more here and a special one. St. Mary's and Auburn. Defensively oriented. St. Elizabeth 9th in offense, 2nd in defense. Auburn 11th in offense, 8th in defense. Well-balanced team, not one position group stands out. That's a fact. St. Mary's, they're so well-rounded. They don't have any guys averaging 20 and 25. They're all around the same number there. Same with Auburn. Nobody really sticks out as of late for Auburn. They always give you a run for your money. That sounds, like a charity or participation trophy, but it's not. St. Mary's, they beat the teams that they play that are worse than them talent-wise, and they usually beat them, but it ends up being close. They played the good teams really tight, if not win. They were a pretty good team last year. Ended up making they lost to Harrisburg. Can't fault them for that. They beat LBC in the playoffs too. A good run for St. Mary's. Around 500 in the last 3 seasons. Again, another win percentage comparison that I just did my studies on, as I would say. This is the year for them, to get a big leap in the win total for the last 2 seasons. You see St. Mary's and you see Auburn, and you're just like, this is the year, Auburn will go from 6 wins to 8 wins. From St. Mary's, you'll go from 16 to 20, 16 to 19, stuff like that. You see them improving, not downgrading this year. Down to the final 2. Valley Forge in Florida. Nathan Wissman was on the show before. Gotta show some love. Both have old historic venues, the Swamp down in Gainesville, and then you got, that old whatever it is they got at Valley Forge with the pillars, They're in a prove-it year, for sure. But Florida's prove-it year is vastly different from Valley Forge's prove-it year. Florida needs to prove, and Billy Napier needs to prove that he can win at this level. He was at Louisiana, now to Florida. Can he win at Florida? Like, he's not been great at Florida, and it's not going to help a tough schedule. Or a Saturday's loss to Miami. And Valley Forge, they had a pretty good year last year, made the playoffs for the first time in a while. But can you sustain that? Or even win a playoff game? Can you do that? We'll see. Coaches in 3rd season, Dominic Boone at Valley Forge and Billy Napier, as I mentioned. Both in 3rd seasons. Big years for both of them. Bottom of the conference statistically in offense and defense. Not a big surprise there. Valley Forge was 13th in offense, 8th in defense. Florida was 9th in offense, 11th in defense. Last one here. Alabama and Wilson. Winning programs. If you followed, Wilson's winning program, obviously. Even if you don't follow, Alabama's a winning program. They're both accustomed to winning, and they're both in a new phase with some new questions. At Bama, they got a new coach. Can they sustain what's been built there? And at Wilson, can they still be that good with other teams at the top of the conference like OBC, Cairn, Harrisburg? Can they hang around with them? They've been above them. They were the 1 seed last year in the division. But can they keep that up is the question. They were pretty good, but not elite last season. They weren't at their peak last season. Main strength was defense. Wilson was 3rd. Alabama was 2nd, each in their own conferences. They face more competition in the conference now, at the top of the conference especially. Wilson, as I said, will have to play those teams. Bama will have to play Texas and Oklahoma and Georgia more often. So, those are all the comparisons. Besides this last one here, I feel like I had to do this. I had to do my due diligence here. I had to honor what the conference is losing here. So we are going to make our last comparison with Clark Summit and Sewanee, the school of the South. Clark Summit, tragically, left their conference not too long ago. Sewanee left it quite a while ago. If you know, you know that Sewanee left. If you don't worry about it. Skip to the end if you don't know. But if you do know, then, you'll know how precious this moment is. So I'm going to honor, I think it's, our time to respect what Clark Summit had back in '79. They won the NCCAA Division II National Championship led by head coach Jim Huckabee. Just what a guy. What a coach. What a team. They were great then, and we're going to miss them as the voice of the United East, if you will. We're going to miss them. I think I speak for the entire conference. So we'll ask you guys to participate with me in a moment of silence for Clark Summit University. Thank you. All right, that wraps up the show. And if you love college football and if you love the United East, this was your favorite show. I really enjoyed doing it. And, we'll have more interviews. We will have more preseason expectations, preseason talk coming up soon. I appreciate you listening, and take care, and God bless.